So I'm going to show you what the Sudoku project should look like when you're all done, and then I'm going to explain the Sudoku helper so that you've got just a clear understanding of what that needs to be. So first of all, let's just play the game. So Sudoku. So first of all, you should print out this cool ASCII art. That's ASCII. It's just this is what's called just ASCII characters, and by putting them all in there, we're able to create some words or art. So this is provided for you in the file, and I'll explain that later. But then you'll print out the menu, and so you'll just put these here. So let's just try listing some scores so we can see Zaphod's scores: 1 win, 2 losses. We can see Stonehammer's scores: 4 wins, 4 losses. And then we can play a new game, and I'm just going to play as Stonehammer. So first of all, you'll notice that by default you'll get this board that only has one thing left. It's just got a little dash here, and once I put a 4 in this position, I'm done. And that's there for testing purposes so that you don't have to play a full game before you realize that you've got a bug when you determine a win or how you handle something. So this is here just for convenience. I'll show you at the end how to get some of the other boards that I provide so that this isn't the one that you see every time. So again, first of all, you should notice that I clear the screen every single time you go, and I print Sudoku at the top. Well, this is what I do in my program. You get to do whatever you want, but this makes it so that it's really clean. So I print Sudoku, then I print the board, and that's provided for you as well. Then you need to print out a prompt. So select a position and a value. So this is going to be the position A4, so it goes column and row, and then the value that you want to put there. Or you can press Q if you give up. So let's say we want to go to A0 and we want to put A4 there. It's going to say, oh, victory, and it printed out in cool ASCII art, which is provided for you. And then it should print out Stonehammer's record, which is provided in a file. So you're going to have to implement some file reading and writing so that you can keep track of everybody's wins and losses. So once you've printed out the score, then you're going to have to, then you press enter and it quits. So let's play again, and let's do a new game. And this time I'm going to put A0 and put a 5. Well, that's not a winning configuration, so it just keeps going. So you could complete the whole board and just do it wrong, and it's not going to finish. And it's not going to say you lose either, because you can still go back and fix it. So I can go back to A0 and say, that's not a 5. I don't know what it is yet, so I'm going to put 0, and that'll put a dash there again. And so that's how you reset a position. But then let's say, since it's not a 5, I'm just going to give up. So I'm going to press Q, and that records it as a loss. And you can see that my losses are incremented, and then I can press enter to quit. So that's essentially the game. It's not too difficult. The hardest part probably is playing the game, But so it's a pretty simple game. I'm not saying that the code is going to be really simple. This is definitely going to be the hardest project so far. So anyway, so now let's go through that helper file. So I provided this Sudoku helper that gives you a couple of functions. So I'm just going to go through these functions each at a time and talk about them. So I give you this print board. So you give me a 2D list as the parameter here, and then I'll print it out to the screen. And you saw that when we printed the board, it had these nice borders, and it had the columns and rows labeled. So that's what this print board function will do. Get boards will read this Sudoku boards text file, and it returns a list of boards. And each board is a 2D list that has just numbers for every position on the board. So essentially this is a 3D array of lists, it's a 3D list. So that's what this returns, but what you should do is just quickly pick one of the boards randomly. And so you'll just do like rand.randint, and you'll select one of the boards from this array that comes back, and then you'll just be dealing with a 2D list. The get ch or get char, whatever you want to call it, it takes an optional message, so you can print something out just like raw input. With raw input you can print something out or not. So it takes an optional message and then it waits for the user to press a single character, and then it returns the character the user pressed. So whereas raw input lets you type in a whole message and then press enter, get ch will only take the first character that they put and then move on. Detect when, so this is obviously this is pretty useful if you're going to be implementing that menu. That menu said you want to play a new game, and then if you pushed N, it moved directly into playing a new game. Detect when takes a 2D board, just like we've got up here. It takes a board, and then it goes through everything in the board to determine if it's in a winning configuration. So just like the rules of Sudoku, if it's got a 1 through 9 in all the columns and rows and squares, that's a win. So if you did that correctly, it'll detect the win. Update the board. So you have to give it the board, so the 2D list of numbers. Then you have to give me the position, the column and the row, and then what you want that position to be. And if it's a valid operation, then you'll get a new board that has that value in this column and row in a new board. So the update board will give you a new board. Or it gives you none if it's invalid. Print Sudoku, all it does is return, it actually doesn't return anything. It just prints Sudoku to the screen. So you shouldn't expect anything coming back from this. This is what we call a void function. So it's just going to print out Sudoku in those pretty ASCII art letters. And then print victory does the same thing, but it prints victory exclamation point. So those are the functions that you get. I hope that they are pretty useful for you. There's still a lot that you've got to do, but this should make it so that you don't have to do some of the difficult things like detecting a win, because this really isn't an exercise in how well you can do Sudoku. It really needs to be an exercise of how well you can do functions and write to a file and use modules. So that's really what we're trying to do, and that's why I provided this helper file.